The Wall was no place for the faint of heart, yet few recruits of the Night's Watch could call themselves brave. It was through no fault of the Watch, for the Seven Kingdoms had grown soft, and the gallant men that were left had no interest in spending their lives on the Wall. Instead, it fell to recruiters to find fresh trainees from the dungeons and pits of poverty in Westeros. During the events of A Song of Ice and Fire, this recruiter was a man named Yoren. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Exploring Fiction. Gruff and grizzled on the outside, Yoren traversed the land, dealing with and drafting into the ranks of the Watch the worst of the worst. But on the inside, he proved to have a kinder heart than his exterior features displayed. When woeful steel severed the head of House Stark, Yoren preserved its legacy, and even died protecting those with a brighter future than he. Men like Yoren were a dying breed, especially in the Night's Watch, but he showed that virtue still existed in a dreary world. So, who exactly is Yoren, and why is he such an interesting character? Let's explore. Yoren was born to undetermined parents on an undetermined year, though he is thought to be in his 40s or 50s. In his youth, Yoren was the victim of an injury to his shoulder, which left him useless in a fight. But as a member of the Night's Watch, he made himself indispensable in a different way. Yoren scoured the Seven Kingdoms as the chief recruiter for his order, and since he often came to Winterfell, developed a unique bond with the Stark family. Shuffling toward his destination, Yoren would vault high a staff with a black banner, signaling the Night's Watch. At his hips were dirk and sword, though he had limited use of such tools in his mangled state. Stooped and ominous, Yoren's defining feature was his disfigured shoulder, which hung strangely from its socket on account of his injury. With hard black eyes, Yoren's homely face was hidden by a thick black beard. When in close proximity, one would find that the recruiter was putrid and covered in lice, and his old black garb of the Watch was faded with age. Often chewing sour leaf, Yoren was gruff and grim, but still possessed the stern values of the Night's Watch, though few like him were left in his order. First appearing in the narrative in A Game of Thrones, Yoren joins a party near the Wolfswood heading north, consisting of Benjen Stark, Tyrion Lannister, and Jon Snow, among others. With him are two new recruits, abysmal miscreants from the Fingers. As Jon Snow beholds Yoren, he begins to grow disillusioned with the idea of the Night's Watch. In his mind, the Order of the Black Brothers was a noble caste of men who enlisted to defend the realm, but Yoren's appearance hints to the fact that the Watch is far from glorious. The troop trudges together to the Wall, and after a brief stop at his frozen home, Yoren departs again for the south, accompanied by 4 Black Brothers and Tyrion. Together, they halt for a time at Winterfell, where a new Lord of the North sits in the hall. With Lord Eddard off to King's Landing to serve as hand to Robert Baratheon, his eldest son Robb leads at Winterfell, and he welcomes the traveling party, though he holds disdain for Tyrion. Despite the animosity, Yoren watches as Tyrion fashions plans for a saddle to hold the recently crippled Bran Stark on horseback. The same night, the hosts in Winterfell dine with their guests, and being the greatest veteran of the Night's Watch currently at the castle, Yoren is invited to sit beside Robb and Maester Luwin in a place of great respect. The Black Brother recounts tales both dire and comedic of the goings-on at the Wall, including Sir Alistair Thorne's antagonism of Jon Snow and Benjen Stark's disappearance and likely death. With their stay coming to an end, Yoren and Tyrion leave Winterfell and tread further south, following roughly the same path as the king's procession. At the Crossroads Inn, Yoren witnesses the arrest of Tyrion Lannister by Catelyn Stark, and rather than intervene in any way, rushes to King's Landing to inform Lord Eddard of his wife's deeds. As the political landscape grows more entangled within itself, Yoren remains in the capital, searching for more recruits. No knights volunteer to take the Black, a more common occurrence in recent times, and so Lord Eddard allows Yoren the pick of the wretches in the royal dungeons. The Black Brother gathers his misfit group, intent on departing soon, when he's approached by a strange man, who gives him a hefty sum to take with him a certain boy. Though unknown to Yoren, the man was Lord Varys the Spider, and the boy is Gendry, bastard of King Robert Baratheon. Meanwhile, Lord Eddard is imprisoned, and word is sent to Yoren to make ready for the provisions to take the former king's hand with him to the Wall. Yoren later joins the crowd at the Great Sept of Baelor, where Lord Eddard stands before the masses. The Lord of Winterfell confesses to treason, and expects to be banished to take the Black on the Wall. In the crowd, Yoren spots Eddard's daughter Arya, and as the new King Joffrey Baratheon orders Sir Ilyn Payne to behead the Honorable Ned Stark, he grabs the young Lady Stark and turns her away from the grisly scene. Lord Eddard is beheaded at the Sept, and Yoren takes to calling Arya "boy" as he drags her away, intent on aiding his old allies. In A Clash of Kings, Yoren still reels from the incredulous events that just occurred, and the young Arya Stark is still in his charge. In order to disguise the young fugitive, Yoren cuts Arya's hair off with a dagger, and takes to calling her Aerie. He explains that she's to act as a young orphan boy recruited for the Night's Watch, and he'll take her north and return her to Winterfell on his way back to the Wall. Along with 30 other travelers, 5 wagons of supplies, and a few steeds, Yoren and Aerie set off for the stifling wastes of the north. On the journey, Arya proves a burden for Yoren, though he spent his life handling miscreants. Keeping the girl in check, Yoren watches over her closely, and even reveals that her father was supposed to join the Night's Watch for his alleged crime, and that something must have gone wrong. Along the road, Yoren and his band fall upon groups of fleeing citizens, proclaiming that war and terror has broken out across their homeland. Yoren dismisses their claims, believing his band will be left alone as they are a part of the Night's Watch, and therefore take no part in political conflicts. Soon after, one of his recruits, a sellsword named Praed, dies of a coughing sickness, marking only the 4th death of a recruit under Yoren's oversight. Their passage slow and lumbering due to the size of their party, the recruiter and his followers inch ever toward their destination, finally stopping to rest at an inn beside the King's Road. Here, Yoren prevents Arya from revealing her highborn identity, and also disobeys the orders of a queen. Goldcloaks converse with Yoren at the inn, presenting him with a warrant from Cersei Lannister herself, ordering the return of Gendry to King's Landing. The Black Brother argues those of the Night's Watch are exempt by the law from such commands, and he sends the Goldcloaks away empty-handed. They promise to return, and so Yoren gifts Arya and Gendry the 2 horses the company owns, urging them to ride north ahead of the group if more Goldcloaks appear. Soured by the irritable Goldcloaks, Yoren and his band abandon the road, instead marching northwest toward the God's Eye, the largest lake in Westeros. Yoren intends to march around its western shore, hopefully ditching the gold cloaks in the process. The company passes by the village of Briarwhite, whose citizens take the Night's Watch band for looters and therefore show them only hostility. Saddened by the encounter, Yoren complains that the average denizens of the Seven Kingdoms are much more disrespectful to the Watch now than ever before. What's more, Yoren explains to Arya that although he's traveled by land to the Wall many times, he might have made a mistake not taking the recruits by sea, or even in taking them at all. After all, the King's Road and the surrounding country have become ravaged by war, and is no place for a band of outcasts, mostly comprised of whimpering orphans. Yoren faithfully leads the group all the way to the east side of the God's Eye River, which flows south from the Great Lake itself. Since they possess multiple wagons, they cannot cross the river without aid, and so Yoren makes to rent a boat from a small, unnamed town on the south shore and cross to Harrentown. Once there, he knows his lot can find safety and a quick respite at Harrenhal under the watch of Lady Shella Went. To Yoren's dismay, he finds the town empty and without a boat in sight. With the intent to mull over his options for the next course of action, Yoren directs the company to an abandoned holdfast where they intend to stay the night. During their stay, a Lannister war party led by the vile Sir Amory Lork arrives and burns down the town. And Sir Amory himself demands Yoren open the gates to the holdfast for his soldiers in the name of the king. Reminding yet another individual that the Night's Watch takes no part in the political conflicts of the realm, Yoren angers Sir Amory, who orders and leads his men in charging and storming the holdfast. Attempts are immediately taken at Yoren's life, but the thrust spears find other targets. Yoren calls upon the former warrior within himself and organizes his ragtag band in defense of the stronghold, fighting back against the Lannister men. The Black Brother slays multiple foes, a shining example to his reluctant recruits. Soon, though, the inevitable result of the battle is made evident, and Yoren knows the battle is lost. Turning to Arya, he explains that she and Gendry must rescue as many of the boys as possible and escape through the tunnel in the stable that Arya earlier found. The pair make their escape, but return to the holdfast the next night, believing they owe Yoren as much. Once it is clear that Sir Amory and his men have departed, they meander back through the tunnel and find Yoren dead, surrounded by 4 enemy corpses and an axe split through his skull. Arya insists they bury her former savior, and she and Gendry lay rest to a legend of the modern Night's Watch, in a place far from the Wall he called home. Throughout the early events in the narrative of A Song of Ice and Fire, Yoren shines as a bright example of a principled man in an unprincipled world. Although he's shoddy on the surface, his inner virtue presents itself in times of need and danger. If not for his maimed shoulder, Yoren would surely be tasked with manning the wall or performing rangings beyond it. However, his usefulness manifests itself in different ways. Perhaps it was meant to be, as his rough yet humorous personality befits the position of top recruiter he occupies in the story. As Winterfell is one of his nearest and most attended stops as he traverses the Seven Kingdoms, Yoren takes quite kindly to the Starks who rule there, and this friendship ultimately serves a far greater purpose that may change the course of history. The execution of Eddard Stark before the Great Sept of Baelor is an affront to the North, and a shock to all, but it is a horror not to be witnessed by children. While he cannot help Sansa, Yoren finds and grabs Arya, turning her away from the greatest tragedy of her young life. And though none of the Stark children can be described as completely innocent, especially as the narrative unfurls further and further, in this moment, Arya still possesses the childlike innocence that manifests in the desire for loving parents. King Joffrey forcibly takes her father from her, and from the world, yet Yoren is there to shield her, albeit in his crass manner. The Black Brother disguises the distraught young girl and brings her with on his journey northward, wrenching her from the clutches of the Lannisters and forming a glaring issue in their bargaining prospects. Though Yoren treats Arya far from the high-born lady she is, he has appearances to keep up, and secretly confides in her and explains that he'll return her home as the rest of the band makes for the Wall. Before that plan can come to fruition, though, the party is harried near the God's Eye by Sir Amory Lorke and his ilk. In a valiant show of resilience, Yoren organizes his sorry band and defends the Holdfast in which they occupy, but it's all for naught. Yoren is killed defending his recruits, skull split by a hefty axe. Yet, 4 foes fall to his blade as well, an impressive feat for a man deemed unfit to man the wall due to his chronic wounds. But Yoren's final stand revealed less about his true nature than what occurred just before it. As Sir Amory and his men charged the Holdfast, Yoren urged Arya and Gendry to take as many of the orphan recruits as they could and escape through the secret tunnel in the stable, while he and the other adults held off the enemies. Again, although Arya, Gendry, and the other orphans could hardly be considered innocent in the purest sense of the word, they were still children, and Yoren was only attempting to protect them from the harshest and most evil realities of the world. And so, the children make their escape, and Yoren perishes in battle, fighting for what he deems to be right. A common complaint Yoren possessed in life was that respect for the Night's Watch was ever decreasing, and while he seemed to be correct, his observances are deserved. Despite his coarse physical appearance and personality, Yoren has a good heart, an attribute he displayed right up until his death as he protected the escape of children from the grip of lesser men. As a representative of the Night's Watch in various missions across Westeros, Yoren met, ate, and drank with many individuals, both friend and foe. Most believed his order to be full of outcasts and criminals, forced into servitude that accumulated to little, and they were mostly correct. Yoren, however, differed from many of his black brothers, for in his chest beat a heart of virtue. In times of peril in King's Landing and the lands beyond, Yoren saved children, both noble and common alike, even sacrificing his life so others could continue on. Though few would remember his name, Yoren's protection of the innocent had a profound impact for those it affected most. So, that's all for this video. Leave a comment with your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new here. I'd love to have you. Visit my website, russellawellsauthor.com, for exclusive fiction and more, and sign up for my mailing list for free exclusive content. The links for both are in the description below. And, like always, I will see you next time.